He's very concerned now about climate change, and Claire, similarly concerned, is joining him. So we'll have Doug and Claire after we've spoken to Paul from Fiduciary Wealth Management this morning in Gibraltar. Good morning to you, Paul.
Good morning, Carl. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Lovely to speak to you. How's life in Gibraltar this morning?
Well, fantastic. I mean, everyone's fully vaccinated. No one's zero infected individuals. Sun is out. Yeah.
All is well in the world.
They'll open up for tourism on the 17th of May. I think we expect quite a lot of interest from the UK because it's one of the 3 destinations given a green light for travel. So we are just awaiting our first tourist for over a year.
I can imagine, Paul. It sounds like the leader who I saw the leader of Gibraltar, or heard them on the radio. Very impressive character. And they may well be there with garlands, like, you know, when you arrive in Hawaii. People will be so glad to see tourists again, won't they, in Gibraltar?
Absolutely. I mean, we used to have 10 million visitors a year, and that has devastated our economy like all other economies, right? But we were dependent on tourism, one of our pillars of the economy. So no, I think we are ready, and we are just waiting to turn things around as soon as the global economy unlocks. But in the meantime, 17th of May is a key date for us in terms of start receiving tourists.
Yes,
from the UK.
Same in Portugal as well. 17th of May, big day in the diary of the world. Well, certainly in Europe. I wanted to ask, actually, while we're talking about Gibraltar, you're obviously in the wealth management world. You're our partner there at Expats Portugal. Find Paul in the directory under Fiduciary Wealth Management and say who sent you. And we'll be talking some top tips, actually, within the realm of the environment and people who care about the planet and making a bit of wonga as well. I think Paul's got some tips in that department. But why is there a concentration of wealthy people in Gibraltar, Paul? What's that historically?
I don't think it's there's no heavy concentration because it's a small market, a small economy. But I think that there's interest for a number of reasons. But there's a post-Brexit phenomenon where the fact that Gibraltar remains potentially, if they sign an agreement, part of Schengen. Which means it's easier to travel across the EU. So whereas we've exited the EU with the UK, we are most likely to be part of Schengen, which is passport free travel within the EU zone. That is being negotiated as we speak, and hopefully there'll be a resolution soon. So there'll be fluidity at the border in the same way that there's fluidity in the Spanish-Portuguese border, where there's very light controls. So that's generating interest in Gibraltar more recently. But Gibraltar offers, a British lifestyle.
Yes.
All the lifestyle benefits of being in the Mediterranean.
Right.
It's, for Brits, it offers, same language, same legal system, so the certainty of English law, and of course the pound still reigns supreme. So it's still very attractive. And then of course the low corporate tax rate and all the tax benefits that it offers to ultra high net worth individuals. So I think the level of interest we've had in 2021 is unprecedented. We've never had so many inquiries in the last 14, 15 years. And if you speak to other practitioners, they tell you a similar story. That there's a huge interest in relocating and redomiciling in Gibraltar.
Yes, and another kind of Singapore effect possibly in Europe. A very, very interesting situation. Okay, so we are talking to Doug and Claire in a little while about how they've had quite a major transformation from being skeptics or deniers of climate change into people who are very concerned about the matter. And we'll take our time and unpack that with Doug when we speak to him in just a moment. But you join us with investment tips, generally speaking, Paul, and we are of course going to be developing that further into an investment club. Plans to follow soon. But you've got a couple of picks for us from the world of people who want to invest responsibly.
Yeah, well, yes. I mean, not just responsibly, but I think the world is moving towards net zero emissions by 2050. Biden has just taken the presidency, and he's turned things around and signed up to the Paris Accord. So the US is now fully on board with net zero emissions. So, and there's a lot of money flowing into what they call ESG investments, which are, environmentally and societally governance. Anything which is green economy is attracting a lot of inflow. Yes. And in fact, a lot of the investment fund houses are now, they recognize that it's a high growth area, so they're establishing funds which are green. Yeah. And equally, there's agencies that are now coming and rating the funds, because everyone can label themselves as green to attract capital, but are they really green? So they're going to start rating those funds to make sure that they actually fulfill the requirements. So there's EU directives governing the rating criteria for different funds, but I think money is flowing into them for logical reasons. But I think it's not just the green economy. Potentially, there's incredibly good investment opportunities if you have the right mindset and take a long-term view. So, whether it's battery storage, or whether it's the clean energies, and we're talking about solar in particular, talking about tips. One of the best performing ETFs, it's a US ETF, it's called Invesco Solar ETF.
Okay.
And it really took off during 2020 and peaked at the end of the year at about $125 a share. And subsequently,
Invesco, did you say?
Invesco Solar ETF. Right. And the code is TAN, TAN.
Okay.
And there's been a pullback in solar because it's been a bit overdone, overcooked too quickly. And look, for the long-term investor, this is just a blip. It's an opportunity to buy more, right?
Yes.
But it's gone down from 125 to about 72.99. That was yesterday's close. And look, it could go further down. But for someone who takes the long-term view, I think it's a no-brainer.
And it would go hand in hand, wouldn't it? Somebody concerned about the planet long term, the sort of person who might plant trees, for example, when they're out in the garden, or buy land to buy trees to rewild the environment. You would be thinking long term with investments as well, wouldn't you? Rather than making a quick killing.
I mean, the main problem we have with investors generally is that they want the returns, but they can't endure the short term volatility. And they are driven too much by fear. And then when the market goes up, they want to be greedy, but they don't want the volatility that comes with it. Then they need to keep it in cash. But if you are honestly, if you have the right mindset and you take the long term view, you can make I don't think we are at a turning point in history, because there's so many new technologies coming through, whether it's 5G and and clean energy and artificial intelligence. There's a lot of areas to invest in for the long term. But what you can't have is a short term mindset where you haven't got the mental strength to endure that volatility. It's not widows and orphans. This is a long term investment play. I'm going to invest in it for the long term. And if there's dips in the market, what a great opportunity to add positions and reduce the average price. Yeah.
Well, and that is the short termism is what's got us in the mess that people think we're in at the moment.
Totally. Yes. Because, I see it every day. I've seen it for 30 years, but people have to really change their chip if they want to, the Warren Buffetts of this world, they've made investments in firms, strategic. Okay, they make tactical investment, but quite often they are strategic long-term investments, right? And they reap the rewards because then they stick to it.
Yep.
And that's the important thing.
Yep. Gary says the problem has been this for the last 40 years. Everyone wants short-term profits. And that too is driven by fear, of course. Jones is here as well. The TAN ticker symbol for solar investing seems very appropriate.
Exactly. So, San Tan. What are you on? I mean, no one will forget because you think, yeah, San Tan.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely. Those words remember easily.
easy.
And there's always one. Look, Jonesy's also saying, is Bitcoin a buy here? How long does it take normally for crypto to get mentioned when we're talking? It's been
Oh,
10
come
minutes this
on.
morning. So how
Look,
go on.
oh, okay. I don't think Bitcoin is particularly eco-friendly.
That's what they say.
I think that's what you told me, Carl. And I think you're right in the way they mine the coins. But look, Bitcoin will be supported as um, so long as the central banks and governments are prepared to tolerate, Bitcoin. Eventually, once they launch their own digital currency, which is supported by gold reserves,
Mm.
they will start regulating. There's already noises in the marketplace. They'll start regulating all the cryptos, and
Yes.
that's when the rug will be pulled from the floor, because I can't believe for 1 minute that the central banks and the big financial institutions that have so much resting on the current financial monetary system will allow Bitcoin and crypto to outdo them. I honestly don't.
Of course
And
not.
the other thing is, look, there's other things, due diligence and anti-money laundering, which I
Yeah.
don't think that it is well known that it's a way of laundering money into the real economy. So they need to control that. I don't think from my understanding, I'm not sure that it's taxed in the way you tax other assets. And thirdly, regulation.
Yes.
They are unregulated investments and high volatility investments. So look, I'm sorry to be so negative on crypto. I think, look, in the short term, they might as well, no, it's okay. They might continue to do well. In the
Yes.
medium to long term, I think once the big guns come in and start regulating and start making life difficult,
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a pullback, a serious one.
No, I think you're right, and I actually, I have observed that, and I've just shared the idea that people are concerned environmentally about Bitcoin. I'm a big fan on a personal level, and Shelley loves the idea of changing your chip, which I guess is another way of changing your mindset. And I think the Bitcoin cryptocurrency, the blockchain, is changing the way we think about money. And I think you're absolutely right, Paul. Governments and the people who might want to control the situation aren't going to tolerate it for too much longer. And the other thing you said about with capital gains on Bitcoin, that's one great thing about Portugal. Portugal doesn't tax capital gains on crypto yet. Probably because it doesn't know how to or hasn't thought of doing it. It will happen in time, though, of course, won't it? No government's going to let that slip, are they?
No, and the thing is, the value of the crypto space is now phenomenal. I mean, it's unbelievable, the value. There's no value, but there's a value, yeah, because there's a price. So something which is backed by nothing has an intrinsic value which is very big, and there's heavy trading. Can you imagine at the time when governments are desperate to raise tax revenues, and they've got this little crypto which is not producing any gains? At the very least, they'll tax it, right?
Yes,
they'll
indeed.
regulate it and they'll tax it, and then they enter the regulated space and they have to compete with other assets on an equal footing. Are they going to hold their value? That's a question.
We will see, won't we? Colin's here. Good morning, Colin Ross Jones. As someone who has been sucked into fast profits promises, and we all have, haven't we, at some point, even if it was on Petticoat Lane as a child, as it was with me, it's always a scam. So well said, Paul. If it seems too good to be true, as the old saying goes, it probably is, right, Paul?
It is. I mean, I fully agree with Colin. You get sucked into, because these rogue advisors operating in the expatriate space, they know that two things can get clients to buy in, right? Fear and greed, and they play on those emotions, and they know how to play that game. So it's very easy. If you're promised a double-digit return, then you want to invest, right? You don't you ignore the obvious, and suddenly all you can see is the gold sign, the dollar sign, and that's a problem. Look, talking about echo, I'll give you a little tip because I don't want to preempt what we're going to do with the the investment club and whatever plans you have, which I'm happy to be a part of. But look, talking about clean energy and so forth, let me just organize myself a bit, because
While you're saying that, I'll add a few more comments. So let me know when you're ready there, Paul. My worry with the regulation of the green economy is that the cost of conformity will drive the smaller companies out of business. Good point, Gary, because they won't be able to afford to conform. It's like the organic companies, isn't it? With often very complex rules and regulations. Good shout. I mean, we could do that for ourselves, right? Large companies can absorb this cost. And Iris Otoba's view on how to invest, or where we might invest, is we need to more eco builders to make eco-friendly homes for small people to buy. And I think by that she doesn't mean people under 5 foot. She means the little people of the world who need somewhere to live, and that's that would be. I think a lot of people would invest in a fund that invested in house building that gave people a fair chance. That's a really nice angle there, Paul. So have you got another one or two tips for us?
I will give you a tip, but the previous comment to that, what was it? The one prior.
Oh, the EU regulation driving costs up.
I think Gary is absolutely right, because the problem with the EU, as an institution, is that they like to over-regulate and they like the bureaucracy and the cost. So on the one hand, it's a very good idea that people don't label themselves as green to capitalize on the capital flows into the green economy. But on the other, it should be light touch regulation, and it should be a simple system of ranking funds on the basis that they're really truly green, rather than labeling. But don't make it overly complex and overly expensive to regulate, because it detracts from what we're trying to achieve. But look, one particular share that I would recommend for those with the appetite for long term, and that's NIO. Now, NIO is the next generation car company, and they do electrical vehicles. But as opposed to Tesla, they incorporate autonomous driving and artificial intelligence. And the good thing about NIO is that they IPO'd about 18 months ago. But they ran out of cash very quickly, and in stepped the Chinese government in an industry that they are keen to dominate, and they took a 24% stake in NIO. Now, NIO is still loss-making, admittedly. They have a market cap of 68 billion, but if I look at the revenues, and if I look at the revenue growth is growing phenomenally at 200% or more. But they're still loss-making and likely to continue being loss-making for at least a year or two more. But looking at the revenue growth, 2018 they generated $5 billion in revenue. 2019 they generated 7.8. 2020 they generated $16.3 billion. This current year they expect to generate 34.7 billion, and in 2022 it's expected to be 55 billion. So in the space of 5 years, there's been a 500 increase in revenue, in top line revenue growth. So I think by 2023, if not sooner, NIO will turn profitable. And we're seeing a pullback in the share from 60 to 34. It might fall down. I mean, it's come from 3. It was priced at $3 in 2020. So it went from 3 to 60. So that's like what, a 2,000% increase. Can you imagine how much? It's since pulled down and lost half its value to 34. It might continue dropping for a while, but I think, for the long-term investor, what an incredible investment opportunity, because unlike Tesla, it's got the backing of the Chinese government and the finance to back it. And what we've seen recently, and this is an interesting development, what we've seen recently is that China is starting to squeeze. I never understood why they were trying to squeeze Tesla out of China, but of course, because initially they gave them, open arms, welcome Tesla, probably to steal their intellectual capital. Maybe I'm cynical, but now they're squeezing them out, of course, because they have to push NIO, where they have a 24% stake. So I think, and again, top line revenue growth, incredible, beating analyst expectations. They'll break into profit in 2023, and the CEO founder chief executive is William Lee, and he's obsessed about world domination for NEO, and he's recently expanded into Norway. Norway is a very green economy, and they see that as a hub, as a stepping stone into Europe. So they're opening plants in 5 cities in Norway, and that will be the drive to develop a global brand. So the financial picture is improving at a phenomenal pace. Yes, there's still some dark clouds hanging over the shares, and that's because there's a chip shortage, semiconductors globally, because during the pandemic there was a lot of demand for smartphones and iPhones and so on, and the supply chains have been disrupted, right? So they've been disrupted, and the demand is such that there's a supply shortage, and you can't just build capacity overnight. You have to build plants. Taiwan is one of the leading countries of semiconductor chip production, and they have to build plants, and the plants have they take time to build. They cost 15 billion per plant. So there's a bit of a supply shortage, which could impact short term in NEO's delivery of electrical vehicles. So that's the cloud that is pulling the price down. But if you look at the long term outlook for NEO, it's phenomenal. And
all right, well, that's phenomenal. Great. And I've made a mistake there. It should be NIO. I put NEO, like Matrix Neo. And actually, correct. There is a cryptocurrency called NEO. I have a whole one NEO, which is only worth about 30 euros, I think. But anyway, NEO is the cryptocurrency, NEO, and the car manufacturer with the Chinese government backing, NIO, which is Paul's tip today.
I think there's a 40% upside from here.
All right,
12 months to about 60. And I think if you look further out, then the potential is just phenomenal.
All right. Well, Eric Willingham saying NEO with an E and an I looked pretty good. Almost the same chart, but more friendly US biotech versus. So another one. There's NEO as a biotech company, as well as NEO, the cryptocurrency. You've got to be careful what you're investing in. Double check. Measure twice, cut once, even in investments. Paul, always fantastic to talk to you. Looking forward to our webinar where we will begin the process of joining together in an investment club and having a bit of fun, making a bit of money there as well. So look forward to that, and have a great day in Gibraltar.
Thank you. You too. When is that date? So the viewers know, is it 11th of June or 16th?
This is 16th of June, of course. Thank you for that.
16th of June. Okay. Fantastic.
Okay, have a great day in Gibraltar. All the best to you.
Take care.
And check out Paul on Fiduciary Wealth Management in our business directory. All the best, Paul. See you later. Bye for now.
Bye.